You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and just like any other time, we have another amazing show lined up for y'all today. Today, we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship. We're going to be talking about coaching. We're going to be talking about a speaker, a best-selling author, Brittney Tollinchi. She has a website you can go check out right now. It's BrittneyTollinchi.com. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see it at the bottom of your screen. First and foremost, I want to say to you, Brittney, thank you for clearing your schedule to talk to our audience today. How are you doing? And you have a resume that probably take 35 years to go through. So I'm going to get to the chase. How you doing?
I am doing so good. I'm just happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I was looking. I said, let me just introduce her because I don't even know where to start on your resume and all you have done. So
let's go.
Let's talk about first and foremost, you being a high performance coach. You empower individuals to unlock their potential, align their habits with their purpose, and also to create lasting transformation. So let's kind of start there. What ignited you to want to do that? And how were you able to just find clients who have these pain points for you to address?
Yep. So I was your stereotypical high achiever. I think, that resonates with a lot of folks all the way from, when we're young and we're trying to just be the best that we can. And you never quit during the middle of the season, right? Like you finish out the season or you finish out the concert or whatever it is. Well, that perseverance programming, while it served me very well for very long, fast forward, I found myself in a high profile corporate career. Thought I had checked all the boxes about all the things that I wanted. Things were fine, but as adults, like when is the work ever done? When is the season ever done? And I had this moment where I was driving from Denver to Kansas City for a work conference, and I found myself bowled the entire 600 plus miles because it was this emotional release I didn't realize that I needed. And the whole time I was just asking myself that question of like, what is this all for? There's no way like that this could really be all there is. Wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. There's no way this is what, and the harder that I ask that question, if you're going to ask that question, you better be prepared for answers. And I started feeling this tug on my heart that I was supposed to do something different. And for me, specifically, it would be quitting the corporate climb. And it took me about a year and a half later from that drive where I finally quit. And I realized that quitting wasn't failure, like what I had struggled with for so long, but that quitting was actually freedom. And when I got to the other side of that and just realized how much I had struggled through being okay with outgrowing a season or outgrowing a version of myself, when I realized how much I struggled through that and then the beauty and the freedom on the other side of it, it was one of those, there's no way in heck I could be the only one. There's no way I can be the only one. And so that's when I went on this journey. 30 days after getting out of corporate, I had a book deal. Couple months later, I had my own podcast. Last November, became a best-selling author. And then now it's like, okay, I've got to teach other people how to do this. So one thing led to another. Now I've got all these frameworks and now I get to change other people's lives by helping them pursue that more, right? Shmaya, like, you know what that's like. Like when you're sitting there and you're just like, there's got to be something more, right?
Yeah. And I want to jump in and say what you're saying is what the show's all about, refocus. And I know in the green room, I told you a little background story, how it got started. And it started with the magazine, Refocus magazine years ago in like 2013, those years. And purpose and alignment is something that it goes like peanut butter and jelly. And my light just went off and we're okay. But you are able to adjust on the fly because when you're aligned with your purpose, nothing can deter you. So I must stay in this show. I love how technology is. But when you think about those unexpected moments in life, right, when things can derail your thoughts and your gameplay, you still have to stay true to that commitment cycle, because if you don't allow yourself to be flexible, then that derailment will become a disaster.
Yep. I was chatting with someone the other day, and they were like, man, if you're out of alignment, if you're at capacity and you're out of alignment, like the vessel's gonna break. And either you break the vessel, you break your capacity, you break your own like routine. Either you break it or a higher power is going to break it for you. But either way, like if you're out of alignment, there's something that's pulling you into something greater, more, something you know deep down is calling you. It's like, so what's it going to take to get you there? And I think that that's one reason why I struggled like I said, it was 1.5 years between that drive where I knew I was supposed to do something different. I was supposed to change up my life. I was supposed to redefine success. I was supposed to reconnect with like a deeper calling. But it was 1.5 years before I could actually make a move. And I think that what that comes down to sometimes is we get comfortable. We get comfortable just kind of humming along. And sometimes it's easier than actually like stepping into that purpose, because stepping into purpose, what I've seen and what I see with my clients is like, it takes intentionality. I mean, like you've got to be able to show up with your yes, kind of like what you were mentioning with your, you said yes to the magazine. And then when he's like, let's take it to a podcast, you had to say yes for all of this to transpire, right? Maybe it was easy, maybe it wasn't.
Oh, it was easy in my head. But once the rubber met the road, it was what I call life happening. And life will always happen when you least expect it. I tell people all the time, if you think it's smooth right now, just wait till you get on the other side of that curve on the road, because there's probably some way for you to test to see how bad you want it. And that's why I say it's not necessarily a bad thing. We perceive it as a bad thing because we're surprised and we're like, well, geez, that's not convenient, because I was hoping that it would be smooth sailing, and all of a sudden, everything's going out of whack. But like I said earlier, when you're able to adjust, you don't allow life to deter what you're trying to do and what you're trying to build. When your purpose is so rooted and grounded, then it can be raining right now. I can have raindrops splash my face. I'm still going to be doing this, because it's something about just pushing through the obstacles, or getting through the obstacles and pushing through the friction that comes your way. Because if you don't allow yourself to grow in those moments, then what you're actually doing is you're stunting your growth and your ability to get to the next level. Last time I'm turning it over to you is new level, new devil. So when we started the magazine, we said, oh, I have a bright idea and do the podcast. Well, guess what? Only had a budget for 2 mics. Only had a budget for a USB mixer. You see my studio, even though the light gave up on me, the studio we're in is the radio station. Think about that for a moment. We went from a small mixer, 2 mics, to a full-blown radio station studio with a very professional mic and almost great light. But it's okay, because no matter what you're doing, life is always going to happen. So if it's raining or if it's sunshine, you just have to be rooted in your routine that you're going to deliver the best quality that you can. Because if you don't, who will?
Who will? Yeah. I think it's that it's adopting, being willing to adopt that perspective that like life is happening for you. Right. I know, like, I think Tony Robbins like started that, like, life is happening for you. So even when you come around that corner and, oh snap, there's that new devil because you're in your new level. And actually like looking at that and being willing to say, okay, wait, what is this happening for? Like, there's got to be something in me. Like what kind of opportunity am I potentially being given to work through something so that I can, again, level up? You're so right.
Once again, listen to Be Focused Radio and watching us online, talking to our special guest, Brittney Tollinchi. Go to her website, BrittneyTollinchi.com. She's an entrepreneur, best-selling author, podcast host, a coach, and also a speaker. When you think about being able to impact, believe it or not, I've been telling people for the past couple of weeks, I'm taking an online class on philosophy. I study it in Toledo, but I had that itch. I just want to go deeper. When you understand that there's always opportunity to learn as a personal, daily life routine or just a professional CEO, that is something that money is no option, because if you have the opportunity to just engage in learning, it's really going to set you up for those other problem solving skills that will come in the future. You personally, how have you been able to take not just, the life scary moments, but also the opportunity to invest in yourself, so that way you actually see that you can get to a much higher level than you currently were without the opportunity to learn?
Yeah. The investment in ourselves, right? Like to your point about learning, it's the thing no one else can touch. It's the thing, it's entirely in your control. How much you're really willing to pick up and sometimes also put down. Like there's an unlearn sometimes that we have to be willing to do, right? I think about investing in myself, and even it was years ago. Probably 14, 15. So many years ago, I remember the first time somebody mentioned having a life coach to me, and I laughed because in my brain, it was like, what do you mean you need someone to motivate you? What do you mean you can't hold yourself accountable to your own goals? What do you mean? I had a very closed mind perception of it. And it wasn't until, again, fast forward, found myself in a transition, because that's what happens. Life happens. And then you get to choose, how am I going to handle this? Am I going to handle this the way I always have? Or am I potentially at a crossroads where I get to pick up some new skills? And that's where I first actually came across the self-help industry. And I started realizing that there were different perspectives that I could pick up in my life that significantly started benefiting the way that I was living. So then when I got to the point where I actually hired my first coach, I'll never forget it. I was not looking for a coach. It was absolutely one of those through somebody I knew. Next thing you know, she's like, hey, that'll be $6,000. And you're like, oh, okay, sure. And again, didn't almost even know what I was signing up for, which I know that makes me sound careless, but at the same time, I didn't have a business plan. I didn't even think that anything other than climbing a corporate ladder was really going to be a part of my story. So when I met this woman, it was like, well, we can start a side business and just see where it goes. Then invested in myself intentionally like that. $6,000 was the most I'd ever spent on myself outside of my college degree. I just don't think that we do that sometimes. I think we're so hesitant to spend money on improving our knowledge and taking ourselves to the next step. And what came out of that was growth on hyperspeed. A business that I never thought I would start, and all of a sudden I was sitting in there, communities and rooms that I never, again, a million years would have thought I would be in. And then I'm standing there, and even, a year later standing on stage. It's nuts what can happen when you're just willing to invest in yourself. And then absolutely that coaching experience led to the year later where I was betting on myself again and jumping out of a thriving corporate career. So I think that it's a muscle that we have to start with, start small. Are you going to invest yourself? Are you going to take this course here, and maybe it's this certification there, and then before you know it, it's full-blown coaching program, or it's a mastermind. So I think it's this muscle that we constantly have to keep tapping into so that we can keep being pushed to our next level and exposing ourselves to what that next level may be. Otherwise, we constantly think that the bar is only here if we don't know any better.
And a lot of times when we don't know, they say, well, you don't know can hurt you, because if you try to reinvent the system and the will, it might just be more counterproductive. So when you think about the coach experience that you had for yourself, it led you to being able to coach others. But in between those seasons, you had to have some kind of mind shift. So my next question would be, what was that one mind shift that changed everything for you, where it was no longer like, okay, it's no more, I can't do this. It's more like, okay, what is next? Because now I'm pumped up to actually go out in the field and actually start executing what I've learned.
Yeah, do it. I mean, entrepreneurship in general has been a one mind shift after another. When you first asked the question, the very first thing that came to mind was this idea of, and I think this really did transpire over some time, but the idea that like when you are in alignment with your purpose, when you are showing up with a yes to something that is calling you forward, what ends up happening is that fear of failure that actually prevents most of us from moving in our lives. Fear of failure, all of a sudden, I found that I was able to detach. The outcome was no longer failure. The outcome was growth. The outcome was expansion. The outgrowth or the outcome was new communities. So the outcome was no longer failure. And when I had that mind shift, I would say that was an unlock in a lot of things, especially maybe even like my courage to show up. I just knew that growth was going to be on the other side of it, whether I got the desired results that I wanted or not. Growth was going to be the outcome. And I was okay with that. So then it allowed me to show up a little more courageously. And then all of a sudden, when I started seeing the results of showing up courageously, then that built more confidence. And so I really do think it was just like these building blocks, these mindset blocks, they all stack on top of each other. Also, they can stack against, like they can stack up or they can stack down. And I think that if we get stuck with like, oh, failure or not good enough or all of the other kind of those lies that we tell ourselves, like the weight of that will bury us as much as being able to stack growth and courage and confidence builds us up. It goes both ways for sure.
You mentioned earlier about a North Star. And when it comes to balancing career, family, and business and all one package, was some of the things that you believe motherhood helped you shape your framework, your overall view on life, and how it impacted your mission?
I think like the canned response that kind of came up for me was like, oh, well, you live for your kids and like, oh, I want to show them what's possible. And while all of those are totally true, at the end of the day, I'm not doing any of this like because of motherhood, or like I'm sure that it does impact it in some way to where obviously I want to be the best version of myself for my kids, for my family, but I want to be the best version of myself for not just myself, but for anybody who I can serve. And I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe that by showing up with my yes, I believe by putting out my own podcast episodes. I get asked all the time, like, hey, why do you like, what's your favorite thing about podcasting? My favorite thing about podcasting is that it has just become such a unique, authentic, raw space for growth. And when I start getting in my own way, because I'm human, I can be the coach. I can go after every certification. I can be in every mastermind. But at the end of the day, I'm still human, which means I still have doubts. I still have imposter syndrome. I still am going to get in my own way. I get to go back to these podcast episodes. I get to come back and revisit conversations like this, Shmaya, where it's like, hey, I've been here before. I've got the tools in my tool belt to get me over this hump too, to show this new devil that it ain't working. We ain't doing this song and dance. And that's so powerful. So like all of this, I think all of this is so that I want to tap into that highest potential, because I know that it's meant to impact and serve. And I think in some respect, we're all here for that. I don't think we're here just for ourselves or just for our immediate family members. Like, I think that we're here to set examples and to create opportunity and to create possibility for each other.
Once again, listen to Refocus Radio and watching us online. Talking to our special guest today, Brittney Tollinchi. Go to her website, BrittneyTollinchi.com. She's an entrepreneur, best-selling author, podcast host, coach, and impact speaker. Real fast, they're probably watching and listening like, well, gee, what's the title of her show? So if you can, tell us a little bit about your own show that you do and what's the name of it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. So it's called Unjuggle the Struggle. And it's because we are all either on some type of struggle bus or, amen, I've been in front of the struggle bus. So it's really, right? Like, so it is really just, again, the place where I show up. It's a lot of mindset stuff. It's a lot of just my journey from corporate through entrepreneurship and just juggling all of the hats that we wear as parents, as friends, as daughters, brothers, sisters, like, just juggling life, because you're right. Life happens. It gets to happen. And so why not show up and talk about it and share it?
What's interesting is when you think about, the progress that we make in our professional worlds, like you understand the amateur moments and the funny moments, the embarrassing moments, the parts where it's like, whoa, how did I not know that? How did I know better? But I like to say this, man. I don't care how high you get on the title or, empire or whatever you want to think it and call it. You're still going to have those moments. You're still going to have oh man, it's still happening. Like the learning curve, in my opinion, is always evolving. It's not that we made it and we are now the smartest person in the world. We don't need any additional help or any feedback or any, humble pie. It's like the humble pie, it comes faster. The higher you go and the air you breathe is much thinner. So if you try to move too fast, you're going to get lightheaded and it's going to be a long way down when you fall. So I like to say it's really no major difference except the fact that if you learn from those mistakes, you fortunately become wiser than what you used to be. For your experience, as you see the progress that you've been able to make in your career, was some of the humble moments that still teach you to this day that, hey, no matter how high I get, I still have to remember where I come from?
Yeah. Oh, I love this question. I think about even one of the very first things with, so I went on this retreat. I was invited to come to a speaker's retreat. And so it was a faith-based retreat, and we're literally on the sand of Virginia Beach. And we've been asked to close our eyes and take different postures. And one of them was like, okay, what's the posture of surrender? And obviously, like in that moment, it's meant to be a really reflective exercise. And I fall to my hands and my knees with my forehead in the sand. And in a really beautiful way, the host brings us all together and then asks us all to take the posture that we took of surrender. And in this, it was a really intimate setting, so it was done really, really well and right. But I realized I was the only person who was literally forehead in the sand, while my other peers were standing, and they were standing strong. And in that moment, I recognized that there's power in kneeling in surrender, being forehead in the sand in surrender, that is definitely, there is a posture and there is a season for that. And there's really beautiful growth and magic that happens in that. And that also, you have to learn how to walk and stand in surrender. And that's a totally different posture. And that requires a totally different mindset and where you're at. And I just think about that moment, how pivotal it was. I mean, it was just, I want to say it was October of last year, so not very long at all. And just what a humbling moment it was to know that I was exactly where I was supposed to be in the kneeling and my surrender. And then to see just a very short time frame go by to where then the message was very clear that I was now needing to walk in surrender. And that got to be a really beautiful transition too. So, always learning, always growing, and it ain't going to stop. And what
I get from that is that you never really have time to dwell on what's happening that you don't agree with. You have to adjust and move on, because in the amateur world, where I used to be, something like a light going out in the middle of the interview, I would have freaked out and said, oh, I have to stop the interview and we have to readjust the lights and take 10, 15 more minutes. And it's a domino effect. And as you get wiser and older, you start to understand, instead of causing a negative domino effect, you stop the bleeding and you say, okay, we're going to just go on from this. We're going to laugh and just move on. We're not going to be too sensitive of what just happened, because I want to use that as an example, because when you're trying to build something like a platform, when you're trying to build your podcast show, I know there's a lot of people out there starting podcasts. I love it. But one thing I'm noticing is that some people, unless you're a household name celebrity, if you're like this small person like me in the barbershop in 2017, you don't have the luxury to find 300 people, 1,000 people. And what I would say to those who just getting started, it may not just be podcasts, be career or business, whatever.
Yeah.
Don't despise small beginnings, because small beginnings, the way I look at it is this: if they can't trust you with 1 penny, what makes you think they will trust you with 1 billion? It amplifies who you are. So you're trying to understand the character in this whole building process as you're growing with your platform. It only emphasizes who you are as you get bigger and as your platform gets bigger. Nothing changes except who you truly are. So if you are locked in with your mission, with who you're trying to serve, nothing is going to derail it, because you have to give permission to derail you. I'm not saying that you might get knocked down, but I am saying you don't allow it to change your whole focal point of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And I mean, you're spot on. Like and there's something about walking and being in that purpose lane. Like when the platform grows, when you're not walking in purpose, those things, like how do you know? Sometimes you're like, well, how do I know if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Or how do I know if I'm being called? Or, and it's like, okay, well, perfect example is like, if the light goes out, does that shake your whole world to the core? Or if like the light goes out, like you still know you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and that everything about it is for you. And how amazing is it that you get to learn and you get to grow and you get to, hey, what a cool test today. I got to do this. And those are very different postures, just like the kneeling or the walking and surrender. Very different postures. Like what posture happens when stuff goes sideways, when life happens. Like that's how you know. That's how you can start taking some inventory.
My last question for you is, a lot of times we can overthink life. And what I mean by that is we try to find the perfect equation to solve every problem. And in reality, it's more like we have to adjust how we approach life and how we have our outlook. What does that look like? Because if we're not careful, we get caught up in this busy bee nest that goes crazy. Because if you shake it hard enough, just find out what's going to happen. It ain't going to be great. But that's what life is like. If we try have so many different equations and try to make it so complicated, we lose the present time. Touch on that a little bit, because I'm sure as you being an entrepreneur, you had plenty moments where it's like, okay, I can really go crazy deep in on this, or I can get back to the basics.
Yeah. Back to the basics. I mean, you nailed it. And it's just be. I think about that. That's something I remind myself constantly. It's just be. And it is that simple. Be. Just be. Be in the present. Be, be happy, be unhappy, just be. Like sometimes I think that we get so in our own heads about like, oh, I'm supposed to be feeling this way, or, oh, I'm supposed to, like, with me, I had checked all the boxes, and from the outside, everybody like would have thought that my life was perfect. And so, you're sitting there kind of in that guilt, and you're like, well, geez, I think I'm supposed to do this, or I think I'm supposed to do that. And it wasn't until I just got really comfortable just being. And for me, that looked like, it started out journaling. It started out with gratitude. It started out with prayer. And the more that I allowed myself to just be, so a question I ask myself daily, sometimes multiple times a day, is like, where are you at? Just like, where are you at mentally, emotionally, physically? Like, where are you at? Because when you start answering the question, all of a sudden you kind of realize you're like, man, I'm still attached to last Tuesday when something didn't go right. And you're like, still? Or, oh my gosh, I've already fast forwarded to next month when we're supposed to be here doing this. And you're like, man, but if I'm already there, I'm going to miss out on the next month. And you're like, whoa. So it's just this constant like recentering of like, where am I at? Allowing that to just be. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to do anything with it. Just be present.
One thing I would say to that before we close is, in San Antonio, is so much construction now. It's a city that's growing. I see nothing but different license plates from different states. I'm like, okay, everyone's coming to San Antonio now. But one thing that I've noticed is I love smooth jazz. And when traffic is crazy, especially after, 5, you can't do nothing. I mean, I've seen some crazy things. I've seen trucks drive on sidewalks to pass everybody. I've seen people driving ditches to get away. I'm just like, everything what you're saying, it's the same thing. Sometimes you can't do what is beyond your control. You can only change how you look at it and how you respond. Because if you try to force something that wasn't meant to be, you will cause more issues, more problems. And one thing I learned is that you lose the chance of creating memories. Because if you're not careful, they say if you spend 60 seconds unhappy, then all it takes is 1 second to change that.
Yep.
When you look at how we live in a world where we are always worried about the next person, we're always looking at this brand. Well, gee, if they can get these customers, why can't I? It's always a comparison game. Like, I have to outdo this person that I don't even know what they had to go through to be doing what they're doing. How do you keep yourself just focused on what's on your plate instead of what the other guy's doing? Because I want to be like them and I want to have the shiny toys like they have. How you keep yourself and what's on your plate?
I love Jen Gottlieb. She's got a quote out there. It's like, don't compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20, because that ain't never going to end the way you want it to. And I think so, especially with social media, why it's a beautiful tool, it also heightens the comparison, right? Because you're looking at what everybody else has. And so you're sitting there and, like you said, you have no idea what their story was. You have no idea what their path was. Sure, maybe they give like glimpses, but that doesn't mean that you were sitting there at 2 a.m. crying with their head in that, like, it's, you can't compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20. And then something that has just been it's something I learned when I was a kid, and I've just always stuck with it. It's huge in our marriage too. It's that the grass is greenest where you water it. So if you're constantly, looking at your neighbor's grass, that's what you're watering. That's what you're giving time. That's what you're giving energy. That's what you're giving attention to. You're right. The neighbor's grass will always be greenest. If you focus on what you've got, if you water what has been given to you, you said, hey, if you can't do something with a penny, you're not going to do something with $1 billion. So like, water the grass that's in front of you, and water that with gratitude, with love, with time, with your energy, with your willingness to invest in yourself. Like, focus on the grass that's in front of you, water that grass. And I guarantee you do that long enough, that grass is going to be the greenest on the entire lawn, because it's going to be the most fulfilling for you. And that's exactly where you're supposed to be. So grass is greenest where you water it.
You've been watching I'm Refocused Radio online and listen to us on radio and podcasts. Once again, talking to our guest, Brittney Tollinchi. Go to our website, BrittneyTollinchi.com. Like always, Brittney, I want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you. This was wonderful. I so appreciate you. I appreciate you showing up consistently and creating this space for people not only to come on as guests, for you to show and showcase like your gift of conversation and connection, and that you do that for all of your listeners. I just think it's absolutely incredible. Thank you for being a beacon of light, that when you step into your purpose, like, look what is possible. There's people who are doing it, and if you can, we can, I can, like, right? It's possible for everybody. So thank you. I appreciate you.